Late one autumn evening in suburban Seattle, Emily Ramos, a 28-year-old freelance graphic designer, finished a long day working at a cafe. She stepped out into the chill, pulled her phone from her bag to check a message, and, without noticing, dropped it. She walked home muttering, thinking she'd dropped it along the block, but when she reached her apartment, it wasn't in her bag or pockets. She retraced her route under dim street lamps, but the phone was gone. She had little hope, since the streets were nearly deserted and the cafe's lost and found claimed nothing had been turned in. That night, as Emily lay in bed with the darkness pressing against her windows, her laptop alerted her to a new email, sent from her own address. Her heart jolted. The subject line was, "I found you." No body text followed, just an attachment, a photograph. She hesitated, then opened it. It was a grainy, black and white shot of her sleeping, taken from the foot of her bed. The timestamp read 2:14 a.m., just 30 minutes ago. Her breath rattled. Her door was locked. She checked the locks and windows again, sure someone had broken in, but she found nothing unusual. The next day, Emily contacted her phone carrier and disabled her SIM. She called the police, who took her statement but warned her such cases were often pranks or hoaxes. She spent the day nervously checking windows, setting up extra lighting in her living room, and sleeping with her door ajar. That evening, her computer glowed with another message, "Why did you leave me?" She looked at her tablet, which she had left idle. All screens flickered as if someone had power cycled them. On screen was a video file labeled home.wmv. Trembling, she pressed play. The video was of her apartment, from various angles, some overhead, some close to the bed, captured moments after she fell asleep. Emily decided she'd had enough. She packed essentials and spent the night at a friend's house across town. The following morning, she received a text, from her own number, "I missed you." She didn't reply. But then the message thread showed her own name, incoming call, Emily Ramos. She swiped to answer. Silence. Then, barely audible, a whisper, "I'm still here." The line ended. Her phone, which she thought lost, vibrated in her coat pocket. She remembered, she had borrowed a backup phone from her friend just to check messages. That backup now lay on the passenger seat of her car, screen lit up with a cracked photo, her bed, and a dark silhouette standing by the footboard. Emily resolved to confront this. She drove back to her apartment in broad daylight, rented storage and moved much of her furniture to a new place temporarily. In her final act that evening, she reactivated surveillance cameras around her windows and doors. She waited, heart pounding. Around 2:14 a.m., her system recorded motion outside her window. On playback, she watched a figure holding a phone, pressed flat against the glass. The phone's screen glowed, a silhouette behind it matched her. She shivered when she saw the screen display, "We found you." 34-year-old Ethan Cole worked as a field technician for an internet company in rural Colorado. His days were long, often driving down empty highways and climbing poles in ghost towns where no one seemed to live anymore. One evening, while finishing a job near an abandoned trailer park, his phone slipped from his tool belt and vanished in the tall grass. By the time he realized it, dusk had fallen. He searched with his flashlight until the batteries died, then gave up, figuring someone would find it. He went home, ordered a replacement, and thought nothing more of it. 2 nights later, Ethan's work phone received a voicemail from his old number. The message was a whisper, looping and distorted, "Don't leave me here." Thinking it was a prank, he deleted it, but another came the next night. This time, it was heavy breathing, followed by the sound of footsteps crunching gravel and a voice murmuring, "It's dark now." The timestamp matched exactly the hour he'd dropped the phone. Uneasy, he decided to return to the site, determined to end the weirdness by retrieving his lost device. The trailer park was empty, half of it reclaimed by weeds. He followed the faint GPS ping that still registered on his account until he reached the last row of rusted trailers. The coordinates led to one that leaned sideways, its door half open. Inside, the air reeked of dust and rot. On a table by a broken window, his phone sat upright, its flashlight blinking weakly, battery nearly dead. The voicemail app was open, showing dozens of unsent drafts labeled only by timestamps. The most recent was from 5 minutes ago. Ethan picked up the phone. The instant he touched it, the screen lit up with the camera app open. It pointed directly at him, but then it switched itself to the front-facing camera, showing not his reflection, but a dim hallway stretching behind him. A sound followed, slow, dragging footsteps on metal. He turned. Nothing. The phone vibrated violently, then froze, displaying one last message across the screen: "You came back." Moments later, the flashlight died. The next morning, authorities found Ethan's truck parked by the trailer park entrance, engine still running. His work tablet, phone, and equipment were gone. Investigators reviewing his company voicemail account found one new file, recorded at 2:09 a.m., Ethan's own voice whispering, "It's not empty anymore." Samantha Reed, a 26-year-old nursing intern from Chicago, was always careful about her phone. It was her lifeline. During a snowy January night, she was driving home after a double shift when she swerved to avoid a deer and spun into a ditch. Her car was fine, but her phone flew out of her hand, landing somewhere in the snow. She searched for nearly half an hour, using her car's headlights as a beacon, but couldn't find it. The cold was biting, her breath fogging the air. Finally, she gave up and drove home, figuring the phone was lost for good. 2 days later, Samantha got a new device and restored her data from backup. Everything looked normal, until she noticed an unread message at the top of her texts. It was from her old number. The message read, "Don't leave me here. It's cold." She froze. At first, she laughed it off, thinking maybe someone found the phone and was trying to scare her. But that night, more messages came. "It's dark now." Then, "I can hear you breathing." The timestamps matched her exact sleeping hours. Terrified, she showed her roommate, who suggested turning the phone off and going to the police. But before she could, another text arrived, this time with a photo attachment. It was a picture of Samantha, taken from the outside of her bedroom window. Her roommate swore the blinds had been closed. When they checked, faint footprints trailed through the snow beneath the sill, leading toward the nearby woods. That night, Samantha couldn't sleep. Her phone buzzed one final time around 3 a.m. The message read, "Coming inside." She grabbed a kitchen knife, heart racing, and dialed 911. The dispatcher stayed on the line as she whispered from her closet. They told her to stay hidden until officers arrived. Minutes later, the power went out. Her new phone lit up one last notification, from her old phone's number, "Found you." When police arrived, they found the front door ajar and snow tracked across the hallway floor. Samantha's phone lay in the middle of her bed, still recording a video. The final frame showed her bedroom door creaking open, and the faint glow of a second phone, camera light flickering in the dark. Samantha was never seen again. Every night, Noah Alvarez, a 29-year-old accountant from New York City, took the same subway line home from work, the C line, always the 11:40 p.m. train. He hated the ride, flickering lights, near-empty cars, and the constant hum of steel wheels echoing in the tunnels. One night, exhausted, he dozed off against the window. When the train lurched to a stop, his phone slipped from his jacket pocket and fell between the seats. By the time he woke, the car was empty, and his phone was gone. He shrugged it off, thinking a cleaner or another commuter would find it. 2 days later, he got a text from an unknown number. It read, "You left something." Attached was a photo, a blurry image of him asleep on the subway, head leaning against the glass. He frowned, thinking someone must be teasing him. But that night, another message arrived, "Missed your stop again." He hadn't taken the subway that evening, he'd worked from home, uneasy. Noah rode the train the next night to see if he could spot the prankster. The car was almost empty, just an old man at the far end and a woman reading with earbuds in. When the train hit a tunnel, his phone buzzed again. The message said, "Behind you." He turned, but there was no one. Only his reflection in the dark window, and faintly, another figure standing directly behind him, though the seat was empty. The lights flickered, the car went pitch black, and his heart hammered. When the lights came back, the other passengers were gone. Noah sprinted off at the next stop, clutching the cold metal pole. As he reached the platform, his phone buzzed again. A new photo appeared, taken from the train he'd just left. It showed him running toward the exit, but his reflection in the window was still sitting. He stood frozen until a janitor approached, asking if he was okay. When he looked back, the train was gone, and so was the reflection. For the next week, Noah refused to ride the subway. Then one night, a maintenance worker found a phone wedged between two seats on the C line. It was unlocked, showing the camera app still recording. The last frame captured a subway car filled with dozens of still figures, none of whom appeared on the train's security footage. One of them, seated by the window, looked exactly like Noah. Clara Jennings, a 30-year-old photographer from Oregon, loved exploring isolated beaches along the Pacific coast. One morning, during a solo trip to capture sunrise shots, she slipped on the wet rocks and dropped her phone into the tide. She watched helplessly as a wave carried it out to sea. Frustrated but unharmed, she packed up and drove home, planning to replace the phone the next day. That night, as she uploaded her camera photos, she noticed something odd, one picture she didn't remember taking. It showed her, standing ankle-deep in water, staring at the ocean. She had been alone. The next evening, as a storm rolled in, Clara borrowed a friend's phone to check her cloud storage. Somehow, her lost device was still active. Dozens of new images had uploaded in the last hour, dark, grainy shots of crashing waves, driftwood, and, in the final frames, what looked like a pale face emerging from the surf. Then her friend's phone rang. The caller ID read her own number. Against her better judgment, she answered. All she heard was the sound of water gurgling, and, faintly, her own voice whispering, "Help me." Clara contacted her service provider the next morning, who confirmed that her old phone had recently reconnected to the network for several minutes before vanishing again. The GPS ping placed it just off the coast, near a cluster of sea caves known locally as the Drowned Mouths. Ignoring warnings from locals, Clara returned that afternoon with her camera, hoping to retrieve it. The beach was empty except for gulls and a rising fog. Near one cave entrance, she heard something faint, her ringtone, echoing through the wind and waves. Inside the cave, the smell of salt and decay burned her throat. Water lapped at her boots as the ringing grew louder. There, on a slick rock, half submerged, was her phone, screen cracked but still glowing. As she reached for it, the flashlight flickered, and her phone's screen lit up with the camera app open. The display showed her reflection, but someone stood behind her, their skin gray and wet, eyes wide and empty. The figure moved as the phone's camera refocused. Then the light went out. 3 days later, rescuers found Clara's tripod washed ashore, her camera still attached. The last photo captured was blurry, almost abstract, until enhanced. In the corner of the frame stood a dark silhouette holding a phone, half its body dissolving into mist. Behind it, the sea seemed to rise higher than the sky itself, and from within the waves glowed a faint blue light, like a phone screen, deep underwater. Julian Cross, a 38-year-old insurance adjuster from St. Louis, wasn't the type to believe in anything supernatural. His life ran on order, spreadsheets, schedules, and silence. One evening, on his way home from work, he left his phone on a cafe counter while paying the bill. When he returned a minute later, it was gone. Security footage showed no one taking it. It had simply vanished from view. Annoyed, Julian got a new phone the next morning, restored his backup, and resumed his routine. That night, however, something strange happened. He received a message from a number identical to his own. It read, "Don't send that." Julian frowned. He hadn't sent anything. But as he opened his email, he saw an unsent draft, an angry message he'd been writing to his ex-wife earlier that day, now deleted entirely. Shrugging it off as a glitch, he went to bed. The next morning, he composed a short apology text to a coworker. Just before pressing send, his phone buzzed. A new message appeared. It won't change anything. The sender ID again showed his own number. The timestamp? 30 seconds before he wrote it. Over the next week, the messages grew more specific. They predicted every thought, every word he typed, sometimes entire sentences before he could finish them. One message read, "You shouldn't drive tomorrow." Disturbed, Julian ignored it and took his usual commute. That morning, a semi-truck jackknifed 2 lanes ahead of him. He narrowly escaped a multi-car crash by slamming on his brakes. His phone buzzed again. "Told you." Determined to find out what was happening, Julian visited the cafe where he'd lost the original phone. The barista claimed she'd heard it ringing in the lost and found box the previous night, though the box was empty when she checked. That evening, Julian returned home to find his living room lights flickering. On his coffee table sat his old phone, its screen glowing. He picked it up. The display read, "Stop trying to fix what you already did." Then, in the reflection of the dark screen, he saw movement, someone standing behind him. He turned, but the room was empty. The next morning, Julian was reported missing. Both his phones were found on the table, facing each other, each showing the same unsent message, "You can't warn yourself forever." When investigators checked phone logs, they found hundreds of messages exchanged between the two devices, timestamps alternating between the past and the future. One final draft remained unsent on both screens: "Don't look behind you." For months, strange reports had been circulating across the country, phones lost under mysterious circumstances, later sending impossible messages or photos. Some believed it was coincidence, others thought it was a hacker. But Detective Lauren Vega wasn't so sure. She'd been assigned to the "Ghost Signal" case, 7 separate disappearances, each one linked to a phone that had supposedly been lost before the victim vanished. The pattern was undeniable: every phone last pinged in a different city, but all shared one final transmission time, 2:14 a.m. Lauren spent sleepless nights comparing the digital forensics. Each phone had uploaded its final file to a single unknown cloud account under a name that didn't exist, the collector. The files contained hundreds of fragments, distorted audio, blurred images, and partial messages. But when compiled together, they formed a mosaic of faces: Leah, Ethan, Samantha, Noah, Clara, Julian, all the previous victims. Each image showed them staring directly into the lens, expressions frozen, as if caught mid-realization. One stormy night, Lauren's phone buzzed. A new message appeared from an unlisted number. It read, "You missed one." Attached was a photo, her, sitting at her desk, reviewing the case files. She whipped around. No one was there. Her security cameras showed no intruder, no motion. But when she checked the footage again, each timestamp froze at 2:14 a.m. The monitors flickered, and her screen filled with new files syncing automatically from her phone, each labeled "lost_phone_8." A low hum filled the room, followed by faint whispers bleeding from her speakers, voices overlapping, pleading, distorted. The names of every victim echoed through her office. Then her phone vibrated violently and fell from the desk. On its cracked screen, the camera app opened by itself. The live feed displayed her face, but behind her reflection stood 7 figures, faint and gray, each holding a phone glowing with blue light. The feed flickered and froze on her horrified expression. The next morning, officers found her office empty, coffee still steaming on the desk. Her phone sat propped against her laptop, camera recording. The video's final frame showed her chair spinning slowly to a stop. When the tech division traced her phone's signal, they discovered something new: 8 devices now connected to the collector account. The most recent upload was titled simply, "We're not lost. We're found."